Ryuutama is a tabletop role-playing game system originating from Japan, one of the first to be translated into English. The story of which is a lesson for another place and time. Originally written by Okada Atsuhiro and localized to the American market by Kurtadama Heavy Industries. It's a relatively simple system and makes a good starting game for those who aren't insistent on the bigger name systems. For brevity, I'm going to assume you know the basic TRPG terminology. If not, just glare at whoever's showing this video to you until they pause the video and explain. Though one change with Ryuutama from other systems is that player characters are known as travelers. Each character has 4 statistics. Strength for things that involve physical might, dexterity for things that involve physical manipulation, intelligence for things that involve knowing something, and spirit for things that involve mental fortitude, like sticking to your ideals or maintaining focus. Each stat can be assigned either 4, 6, 8, 10, or 12. For our example today, let's assign them like this, favoring dexterity because I like rogues. For skill checks, in most cases, you will roll 2 dice. Depending on the action, you will combine either 2 stats and roll the corresponding dice, or just roll the dice for 1 stat twice. For example, climbing a tree requires strength to pull yourself up and dexterity to grip the proper handholds. So our friend will roll both a d4 and a d8. Let's pretend we roll a 3 and a 6. Next, we add them together for 9, which beats the target number the GM had for climbing the tree. Depending on the task, your skills may be called upon in any number of ways. Picking a lock takes dexterity to manipulate the components and intelligence to know how. Magic is cast by combining your knowledge of spells and your will to make it manifest. Or maybe you're cheating at cards. Dexterity to manipulate the cards, plus spirit to convince the other players you're on the level. Feel free to suggest certain skill combinations to your GM, but the GM gets final say because the game eventually needs to keep moving. Let's say our traveler has a big rock to lift. That's 2d4 because there's not much else besides strength to lift it. So our traveler friend rolls her strength twice. Double 1! That's a fumble. The traveler fails the task, and any items they use to assist take damage. However, they and their party members each receive 1 fumble point in return. Back to that in a moment. On the opposite end, there's the critical success, which has 2 methods to achieve. Either both dice land on their highest value, or both dice land on 6. For example, our traveler is trying to hold tight to boat rigging during a sea storm. That's a d4 for strength to hold tight, and a d6 for spirit to face their fears of falling overboard. If the dice land on their highest numbers, in this case 4 and 6, that's a critical success, and our traveler gets the best possible result. However, if we upgrade the d4 for strength to a d8, and that lands on a 6, retaining the result of 6 on the d6, this is also a critical success, because of the double 6. The 2 methods for critical success don't overlap. A 4 on a d4 and a 6 on a d8 is not a critical success. It's either the highest value of both dice, or both dice land on 6. Items and magic can bestow bonuses to checks as appropriate. You can also spend a fumble point to concentrate and get a +1 on your check. Concentrate costs either half your current mental points, or 1 fumble point received from a critical fumble. You can't concentrate to improve initiative, damage, or condition checks. More details in the other 2 parts. Finally, contested checks are when 2 characters compete against each other. Both characters roll, highest number that succeeds wins. Unless there's some mitigating factor that changes the scales. Again, listen to your GM. That's it for today. Next time, character creation and growth. Welcome to Ryuutama Lesson 2, Character Creation. For this part of the game, you'll want a copy of the book, a character sheet, and a pencil if you're utilizing physical media. Because if it's physical, they have to break into your house to take it back. There's many places you can start after you have a concept for your character. By the book, the first step is selecting a class, which bestows unique skills upon your traveler. These skills aren't how your character interacts with the combat mechanics, but how they interact with the world. The occupation they have, and what non-combat abilities they have to play with. I'm not going to go too in-depth with explaining the classes individually. There's 7 of them, and I don't have time to explain all their abilities. The minstrel is an entertainer. They gain favor with those around them through song and story. The The merchant, mainly focusing on handling the economic tasks, trades goods and services. The hunter's skills include tracking, trapping, and foraging. Consider them experts in the wilderness. The healer heals. Look, Ryuutama's not going to throw you any curveballs. It says what it means. The farmer, due to their temporary nomadic life, do not tend fields, but instead tame animals and can do odd jobs. Artisans make things to sell or use, as well as repair items. Finally, the noble. They're like a bard or merchant, but focused on upper-class situations. You can read more information on the classes in the book. Now, as previously mentioned, none of these classes affect how the traveler operates in combat. For that, choose one of 3 types. There's the attack type, who's good at fighting enemies. You have the technical type, if, like me, you prefer written skills. Then there's the magic type, who uses the magic system. As for that, the check is intelligence plus spirit. There's 4 schools of magic named after the seasons, and besides a brief explanation of MP, you'll just have to read the rest from the book. Brass tacks video, don't have the time. Which brings us back to the stats. Strength, dexterity, intelligence, and spirit. At this point, choose one of 3 arrays to assign. There's the average array for average people, where all stats are a 6. Standard array, for those who want variety, giving a 4, 2 6s, and an 8 to assign. Or, if you like to play to the edge cases, the specialist array gives you 2 4s and 2 8s. As you progress and level up, you'll be able to gradually increase these stats as you desire, bringing in D10s and D12s. The stats determine what dice you roll on checks. Finally, for the math bits, there are 3 values we need to calculate from the base stats. Health points, which are used to determine how many hits you can take before you collapse, is double your strength score. Mental points are used to cast magic or to concentrate, and is derived by doubling your spirit score. With both HP and MP, if they hit 0, your traveler falls unconscious. Also, important magic rule, you cannot cast a spell if you have insufficient MP. Can't even try. Unless the GM says otherwise. Finally, you need to know your carrying capacity to know how much stuff you can carry. It is strength plus 3. Each item has a size score. Add those up, and if it's equal or less than your capacity, you can bring it along. Now we're done with math, and you can get back to just deciding things. First, favored weapon. The type of weapon you can use without penalty. Choose one of the weapon categories from the book as your mastered weapon, then take one specific item from that category as a free gift. Unless you went with unarmed fighting, in which case you get nothing. Afterwards, go ahead and make a personal item. Some sort of trinket with roleplay value to you and your traveler, but of no mechanical consequence. This is also a free thing. With the freebies distributed, you now have 1,000 gold to fill up your inventory. So look over the item list and buy what you need and want. Now we reach the final step in Ryuutama's recommended process, although typically I would do this one first, the personal details. Give your traveler a name, decide how old they are, assign them a gender, and come up with a physical description. Decide where their hometown is, and a reason for traveling, and any other details that you want to apply to your character, including their image color. What is an image color, you ask? It's a color that operates as a visual shorthand for your character. Like how in a 4-man band you typically have someone dressed in blue, someone in red, someone in yellow, and someone in green. Sometimes the color coding applies to their possessions in general. So take any color you fancy, though try not to overlap with your fellow players. And no brown. That one's mine. Well, that's how you make someone in Ryuutama. Next time, combat. You ready to fight? For combat, you're going to need dice, a way to represent yourself, and the battle egg, also known as the battlefield seat. Upon which is the egg-shaped combat arena, a place to track initiative, and spots to write down items. Ryuutama doesn't concern itself with positioning too much, so there's no grid or strict distance to worry about. During the setup phase of combat, as a group, decide what objects might be present on the battlefield. Things like a wall to duck behind, a throwable barrel, or a chandelier to string on. As long as it's reasonable for it to be there. For your standard combat, 5 items is enough, while an important boss fight might warrant 10 items. Decide on these in a fair and honest manner, perhaps taking turns to choose. Next, travelers roll dexterity plus intelligence to determine their initiative. The monsters have a preset initiative score, With initiative determined, place your characters upon the battlefield. Depending on how you count them, there's 3 to 4 areas of the map. The travelers have the ally back area, while their opponents have the enemy back area. The front area is neutral space, though it is still visually divided. You can start with your pawn in either the front area or the ally back area, and the same applies to the monsters. Those in the front area can attack anyone else in the front area with melee attacks, while either back area can only be attacked into or out of with ranged attacks. So, Andrea, the fighter, can strike enemy 1 with her great axe, but enemy 2 is too far away. Cammy, in the back, can attack either enemy with her bow. Same applies to the monsters. If either side no longer has a unit in the front area, then everyone remaining on that team in the back area automatically moves into the front area as their opponents close the distance. Once you have initiative and placement sorted out, combat may begin, starting with the highest initiative score and moving down the list to the lowest, then back to the top. On their turn, a traveler may take 1 action. You can move, changing from the front area to the back area, or from the back area to the front area. You can assess the situation to re-roll your initiative, changing if you roll higher than what you had before, or maintaining your initiative if you roll lower. Although, side note, were I your GM, I might make you take the re-roll regardless. Add some risk. The next action you can choose is to cast magic. As long as the casting time is listed as normal in the book, you can attempt to cast the spell. But be careful, spells affect everyone in the area. So if you cast an offensive spell into the front area, you'll risk hurting both your friends as well as the enemy. Otherwise, magic works as it always does. Next, we can finally talk about attacking. You may attack your opponent. First, you roll an accuracy check, the target number being the opponent's initiative score. If you succeed, roll a damage check. If you crit your accuracy check, roll your damage check twice and add the results. Your equipped weapon determines the accuracy and damage checks. Oh, and about that mastered weapon chosen during character creation. If you use a non-mastered weapon, you do all the same things, but you lose 1 health point for every action you use the non-mastered weapon for. On the receiving end, some items grant defense points. Subtract defense points from physical damage incurred. Magic ignores this. Characters that have shields use its shield dodge value instead of their initiative when defending. You also may, before attacking, declare an intent to do non-lethal damage. Doing so gives you a penalty to accuracy, but if successful, your attack will not drop your enemy's HP below -2. You can sacrifice your turn to defend. Until the character's next turn, reduce all damage against the defending unit by 1 point. You can take an attack in the place of an ally in the same area, but it grants an automatic success on the opposed accuracy check. As for other actions, if you can theoretically do it in 10 seconds, the length of a combat round, you can do it as an action, if your GM approves it. The party can, as a group, decide to flee the combat. At the end of the round, if the party's total initiative score is equal to or greater than the enemy's, you may leave. Finally, let's explain fainting and death. If your traveler's HP or MP falls to 0, the traveler falls unconscious and cannot act until healed above 0, at which point they resume whatever initiative score they had before. However, if they hit the negative of whatever their max health points are, then the traveler is dead, so be careful. Unconscious and dead bodies count as size 5 items. That's everything you need to know to get started in Ryuutama. If you have any further questions, please read the book. Until next time, may your dice make things interesting.